Hi, I'm Dr. Lurie. I'm a physician specializing in psychiatry, and I'm the author of PsychePolitics, How to Read the Political Mind. You know, in this video series, we've talked about how we've gone from our biology and our genes all the way to our brain and our mind. We've talked about how survival and reproduction are the essentials of life. Now we're going to talk about what happens to all of us from birth into the real world. This next video is called Childhood Development, Morals, and Values. Let's take a look. So we've talked a bit about the various functions, the big picture of the functions of survival and reproduction. And now let's really drill down into how it all works. That is, when we go through development from infant to adult, how it all happens, and the role of our fathers and mothers, the males and females, as that goes along. Now, our two genders have become relatively equal, more and more so in modern times. One of the big differences between them, brawn, has become less important than brains. It's also true that in ancient times, women, when they didn't have to engage in childbirth or child rearing, would enter the real world and engage in brawn activities. Even though perhaps they couldn't plow the field as well, they certainly were in there plowing or doing what had to be done to keep the family unit going, and to keep it going in terms of the gathering of resources for the dependents. In any case, the man's role at the moment of birth, remember that's the biological moment of truth, is to be out in the world, the real world, gathering resources, acquiring resources to bring back to his wife for the family. Now, in early days, what the man would do is capture prey. He would hunt. He would have to plan and do this. He would have to use his cunning. He would have to engage in competition with, in fact, the prey. But later on, as society evolved, there were other ways to acquire resources. One could have a business, that is, sell things one made or one services, or get a job in a larger organization. In either case, what the man got out of that was money to buy resources. Now, in case you haven't noticed, most other species can't make this jump. They can't even use tools. That is, there's no advance in technology. Whereas humans, because we can abstract and we're not focused only on the concrete, we can learn that there's a replacement for goods and services called money, which if acquired can get us those goods and services that we need. We translate our efforts into getting money, and that becomes what men get pleasure at acquiring. Remember, in order to do the behavior, there has to be pleasure fueling it. Men have pleasure acquiring resources, finding and acquiring resources. But wait a second, there's another guy out there that wants the same business, job, or money. So there's competition out in the real world, and biologically it was a zero-sum game. In countries like America, there generally is enough to go around compared to some of the undeveloped countries, but in any case, the male has to be ready for there to be competition and actually have pleasure in competing, or else he wouldn't do it. Even though he could lose, he'd have to do it because that other guy can get the goods and services or the money and take it to his family. There's competition. And in order to have this, as society evolved, we had to have rules or laws, or else there'd be constant wars with each other. So these are outside the nest functions. Below this line is something else. Well, we've now seen the fundamental biological role of the male. Now, mind you, both male and female have lots of roles in child rearing. However, we've now talked about what's particular to the male from a biological perspective, certainly at the time of truth, which is when the woman gives birth and cannot participate in the outside world. We've seen how the role of male translates into certain values, such as acquiring, rules, and competition. Now we're going to see what happens below the line or in the nest. The next video is called Childhood Development in the Nest.